Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us and listen to this. My name's Claire Willers. I'm Senior Manager for Market Relations here at Gold Standard, and I've been joined by two, what I'm going to call absolute legends of the Gold Standard. So I've got our Chief Technical Officer, Owen Hewlett, has joined us, and Vikash, because that's all you need to know. It's like Beyonce, the only name. Vikash Dailan, our Senior Director for Standard Development and Innovation, is here today too. And really, we're going to talk through what this Assurance platform is all about. I've got a couple of housekeeping items to go through. So this webinar, it will be recorded, and that recording will be published online on our website. Please, can you put your Q&As in the Q&A box? This session is really dedicated to support and answer any question that you might have about this process. So please feel free to drop those questions in there. If we don't manage to get through all of those questions, then we will follow up directly with responses. So no worries there. We'll also follow up after this webinar with a communication with any useful links, resources, or access to the platform. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Owen if he could talk us through the where has this update come from, why have we got it, and what does it mean for project developers? Thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Claire. And hi, everybody. Nice to see so many familiar names in the participation list. We really appreciate all of you coming to this. It has a nice end of year feel as well. So, an early happy holidays and happy new year to those celebrating that. I wanted to just do some framing before we get into the more technical detail of how the assurance model and platform works. And the timing is really good because Gold Standard, as some of you may know, operates on a 5-year strategy cycle. And by a quirk of timing of when I joined, this will be the third that I go into, the 25 to 2030 strategy, which launches from January onwards. And there'll be loads more to come on that. You'll see a lot from Gold Standard about its intentions in that period. But boiling it down for the sake of a presentation today, it really includes two critical aspects. One is to really home in on and major on our core services, our core portfolio. And that's really what we're talking about today. How much easier can we make it without compromising integrity to support projects, to certify projects, and to issue the assets that they need to garner funding? And then on the other side, as you I'm sure will know, Gold Standard does like to innovate and explore new areas, new applications of the standard, new ways to get funding, but also more prominent on the demand side. So thinking through how we support, proper, thoughtful action by companies, those that fund, because ultimately, growing that responsibility is what grows the demand for that portfolio. So it's a super exciting time. I promise the strategy is more nuanced and complex than this, but I just wanted to really highlight that it's very much about strengthening our core and building on that with exploring new areas of funding and helping build corporate demand through responsibility. If we go on a slide there. Really then breaking that down into 5 strategic priorities. Strategic priority 1 really talks about the corporate demand side. You'll have seen from us over the last few years, thinking about best practice frameworks, guidance for how to take responsibility, so more of that kind of thing. And then the 3 middle ones here, 2, 3, and 4, all speak to what you will all know us best for, which is the standard assurance system, the infrastructure to support you all to use that, whether it's VVB or project developer or those scrutinizing projects, and the digital platform that underpins that. And really what you'll see from us today and what we've just launched is the culmination of those 3 key work streams in 2024. Much more to come in 2025, but we're already effectively underway in the strategic areas of 2, 3, and 4. And then strategic priority 5 really speaks to internal processes. None of this works without operational excellence within Gold Standard. So I'm really excited sounds a little bit nerdy, but really excited that we're strengthening those internal aspects that allow people like myself and Claire and Vikas, Beyonce, to get out of our own way, you know, to really focus on the work that we've got at hand. If we go on a slide there. So GSIQ, some of you may have read various blog posts over the last few years. What was a sort of relatively vague branding notion has become quite a clear platform design and work plan. And it's really looking at how can Gold Standard pioneer being a digital NGO. And that's just not a common way to think about digital organizations. We tend to think of digital businesses when we do that, but I don't think there's any reason why an NGO shouldn't be thinking the same way, especially one that interfaces in such real time with projects on the ground like Gold Standard does. And so the GSIQ digital platform, the digital core of this, is really all about enabling us to catalyze more funding and more action through support to all of you as users of our standard system. So there's a supply side aspect to that, and that's primarily what we'll be talking about today with the assurance platform. But it also includes how we set and develop and publish standards. It includes how we provide oversight and support to our VVB community, and it also includes the linkage to that workflow with the registry. So a lot more to come in the next 5 years, but I really want to stress that I think it's objective 4 on the previous slide, is really all about the digitalization of Gold Standard. It's a super ambitious plan that we have in place for that. If we go on a slide.
Well, there's some animation in this one.
Yeah, we were just joking about animations beforehand. There we go. I promise the platform works better than that. So why are we doing an assurance update right now? Well, we're really doing 3 main things with this assurance update, which mirrors the priorities I mentioned earlier. The first is to update our assurance model. The second is to provide an updated digital platform for document management and workflow. Excuse me, must lose my voice. And the third is to provide the infrastructure to support stakeholders do that. So think help desk or performance support for VVBs. And the underpinning reason for doing that is that we want to make sure that we enable the existing and the new applications of Gold Standard for the global goals. So there's lots of ways that projects could get funded credibly, and we want to make sure those are available to you. We also want to make sure we take our core portfolio and align that and exceed market expectation. So clearly the market's changed in the last 5 years. I don't think anybody is unaware of that on this call. We want to make sure that we A, align with that, and then B, as always, pioneer better ways to do it. And then the innovative part, as I say, with GSIQ, where does digital technology take us in this space? For the first 20 years of Gold Standard's history, you could describe it as very manual, very analog, and there's no reason or excuse for that to remain the case in the next 20. And so digital innovation is a big part of that as well. If we go on a slide. So the assurance model itself is, from a process and workflow perspective, we'll go through that in this call, will look very familiar in many ways. So it will still be project developers appoint a VVB from our approved list. That VVB will conduct validation or verification and share that with Gold Standard. So Gold Standard will then conduct a quality review and provide feedback to the VVB. And then the VVB will send the final certification recommendation for decision to Gold Standard, and then we will complete certification. So that's a somewhat complicated way of saying the the recommendation from the GSVVB is the decision. That's what the decision to certify and to issue credits will be based on. And this change really is to align with market expectations, to streamline, to better recognize the role our excellent VVB community plays, and to, I hope, make it a more efficient process overall. If we go on the slide. So there are some key changes to be aware of. We'll go into these in a little more detail as we go through. We will now serve, as in Gold Standard, will now serve as the central repository and point of contact. So when you submit a new project review of any kind, it comes to Gold Standard. It will go through the Gold Standard platform, and therefore, straight away benefit from the efficiencies that brings. But over the next years, as I say, benefit more and more from what GSIQ will add to it. in doing that, we want to also now build out the performance support, performance management training for our VVB community. I mean, somehow I mentioned the market changing over the last 5 years, but somehow the kind of unsung heroes of that really are our VVB community who sort of are never somehow part of the public conversation, yet the market can't do without them. So we're fortunate at Gold Standard to have such a great community of VVBs, and we really want to get closer to that community, provide more support, learn from them as well. So that's a big part of this, is a whole work plan for that. We've introduced what we're calling a roster of experts, so expert reviewers to manage the request. There's a new in-house team to manage that called the Assurance Review Management, the ARM team. So our new armies will look after all certification reviews. And as I say, we've got an expanded roster of expert reviewers to ensure we can respond to demand. And then lastly, the Gold Standard registry process related to invoicing and fees. So you'll have seen new fee updates, and the invoicing process has been streamlined as well. I know there's been lots of pain caused by invoicing in the last 5 years that we hope to be able to correct for. So all in all, I think as well as making the tweak to who makes the decision and how they make it, there's a lot of streamlining that's been launched at the same time as that. Now, obviously, just starting out from the 5th of December, you may not have seen all of that yet, but I hope you really benefit from it in 2025 and beyond. And we have a plan for more of the same, more things to come that will improve usability and streamlining even further. We'll call that next slide.
Shall I take it from
please.
here, Owen? And so Owen's just talked about some of the changes that have come into play. So the change in terms of the assurance model, and that VVBs are going to take the decision, and also some of the updates we have in terms of our management processes to ensure that we're able to complete these changes. We have a digital assurance platform that really underpins this. And so this platform will be where all the documentation is housed, and it's really there to help facilitate efficient document management or management of those documents. And it will help in terms of workflows. So within the system, you can request for a review, or you can request for a design change. And depending on that request, there's workflows that will support that. The system has also been designed in a way that it seamlessly connects to other relevant gold standard applications. So systems like our impact registry, for example, or our SDG impact tool. And also another key point, which I think is important to note, is that we've designed this system as one system that enables all stakeholders that are part of the certification process. So that can be VVBs, it can be our internal armies, as Owen just referred to them. It can be the reviewers that will actually review the projects. And we even have the ability for the TAC to look at some projects if it's so required. And so the system's been designed in a way that these stakeholders can participate in the process as per their role requirements, and that's something new. And it's done within one system, so it's not with separate emails here or there. It's centralized in one platform, and this is really going to help support in more efficient and better decision making. The platform was released live into the ethos on the 5th of December. So we've already had lots of registrations for the platform. I believe some of you should have already had a little look around to see how the platform works. Those that have been able to access and that have existing projects, you would have seen that data has been migrated across from the Sustaincer app into the digital assurance platform. We really took a lot of time in looking at how we could migrate this data in the most comprehensive and tested way. We used external experts to help us do that. So we really hope that everything is being pulled through where it should be. We are encouraging those project developers that when they do gain access into the platform, just to have a wee little check, just to make sure everything is where it should be. And if you do encounter any issues, then you can reach out to us at help@goldstandard.org, and the team will be there to help support with that. Okay, so I want to talk through some of the functionalities that the system has. So as I said, it's where all the documentation will be housed. It's where you can manage your existing projects. It's where you can create new projects or new POAs or add VPAs. It's where you create your requests. So a request for a review, or as I said, a request for a design change. And so you would create your request and then you would update the information. You would add what documentation would be required. This is also highlighted within the request. And then you would submit that request and it will go through the correct workflow associated with the request that's been asked. The system also lets you assign, so you can assign your VVB. There's an ability for public global stakeholder consultation. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a couple of slides' time. There's also functionality in there where you can manage your documentation. So obviously for some organizations, some of the documentation might have sensitive information in it, and it's information that shouldn't and doesn't need to be made public. So there's the ability to manage that within the system. Another couple of areas that I think is important to highlight is that if you have many projects or multiple projects that are going through the gold standard certification process, there's dashboards in place so you're able to see those different projects and manage the different requests that are being undertaken within those projects. There's also notifications. So when projects reach certain milestones or there's an update that needs to be provided, that can be done via notifications. Okay, the next slide. So the slide after this, I'm going to talk a bit about the workflow for a request. But before doing so, and this is the bit I'm super nervous about within this webinar, because I'm going to hope it works, is I'm just going to play a demo. And this is really just to show how you would create and submit a new request. There's also a little bit in there that shows you how the dashboard works. So let's see if this works.
Within a project page, users can create a new request from the Requests tab. You will arrive on the New Request menu and can proceed to selecting a request within the drop-down. Different types of requests are available for different stages of the certification process. The different requests define the workflows to be followed, data required, documents to be uploaded, and who it is to be assigned to. For this example, we will select Design Certification. Proceed to selecting a crediting period ID, input estimated annual emission reductions or removals, and select Next. The request will specify the required documents specific to the type of request. The request status will appear as in preparation. The next stage will be to prepare and upload the required documentation to the request. After uploading the documents, the document status within the request will change. Please note, the project developer is responsible for uploading project documentation, and the VVB is responsible for uploading validation or verification documentation within their account. Once the required documents have been uploaded, project developers can click Submit Request and select VVB. A full list of approved VVBs will be shown in the drop-down menu. The selected VVB user account will be notified within their request dashboard and has the option to accept or reject the request. This inbuilt communication feature within the platform will improve project assignment efficiency and document management. Once a VVB has accepted an audit request, they will be granted access to the project documentation and can begin the audit. The request status will appear as in audit. VVBs will have their own user accounts and separate functions within the assurance platform. Once the VVB has finalized their audit, they will submit all documentation, including the validation or verification report, into the assurance platform. The submission will trigger a completeness check performed by the gold standard assurance team. The status of the request will be updated to completeness check.
Okay, so So that demonstration showed a bit about how to submit a request through the platform. So now I'm just going to talk through each of those steps in a step-by-step manner. Before doing that, I just want to talk about one important feature which I think is good to highlight. And so the way we've designed the platform, we've done it in a way that access and the functions available depend on the role and assignments. So what does that mean? So it means that access is only going to be granted for those who have been assigned and only for what they've been authorized to view and only when it's their turn to see the information. So I think that's just an important part to understand. And so when we have a request, so you would have as a project developer, you would submit a request, you prepare all your documentation, you would provide the VVB with that documentation. Here it's important. So the way you contract your VVB and the way you work with your VVB is the same as it always has been. So you would do that the way that you do it now. You provide the information to them the way you do it now. A key change that has happened and was noted in that demonstration is that now it's the responsibility of the VVB to upload their final validation or verification report. So when you submit your request, the VVB will take all that information, they will assess it all, audit all, and they will be able to upload their parts into the system. Once that has been submitted, the internal team within Gold Standard will do a completeness check. And so they will just check that all the documentation that should be there is there. If there's anything missing, then that will go back to a request to either the project developer or the VVB to provide that missing information. We have a timeline now that we would expect that information to be provided within 2 weeks. So once all the information's there, the completeness check is successful, then the team internally within Gold Standard would then assign a reviewer. An important part that I want to mention here is a part of that process. So when a reviewer is assigned, there is a conflict of interest process that's in place. And so the internal team will assign it to a reviewer and they have to declare if there's a conflict of interest or not. If there is, then that project won't be assigned to them, it will be assigned to someone else. And so that's built into every project that goes through our process. The other part that happens at the assignment stage is that the information from the project will be made public via a global public consultation. And so this global public consultation is not a replacement to the stakeholder consultation that projects need to go through at the beginning of the process. It's in addition to that. And it will run for 2 weeks. So it will run the same time the review is running. So there'll be no impact in terms of timelines. And any feedback received compiled and pulled together into the output report that comes from the reviewer. So the project will be assigned and then an invoice will be generated for the fee. There's a change here that we've put into the process that we really hope will help support project developers. And so now, instead of having to have made the payment before the review happens, the review can go ahead without payment being made. However, the results from the review won't be released until payment has been received. So the reviewer will then review the project. They will close the project, And if there's any corrective action requests or requests for clarification, then that will go back to the project developer or the VVB. And then response to that will come back to the same reviewer just to make sure that there's consistency. And obviously it will skip the completeness check and the assignment and any additional fees. So that is, in a nutshell, a bit about the workflow. This slide just talks about some of the other key updates that have happened. I'm going to note that there was a rule update that was put out that it's called Rule Update Standards Assurance Model Update. It's a really, really good document, and it really shows what changes have been put in place and what impact that may or may not have for project developers. So I'd really recommend taking a look at that document, and we'll make sure it's included in the follow-up email after this webinar. I've talked a bit already about global consultations, and I've talked about revised payment schedule as part of the workflow. Another part, and Owen kind of mentioned this, is that we've updated our fee schedule. And so I would recommend having a look at the new updated fee schedule. This is the first time we've updated the gold standard fee schedule since 2017. And we've really tried to think about how to better manage the growing complexities that the market has at the moment, whilst also maintaining our focus and the focus that we've always had in supporting high impact projects. The other thing that we've done that I think is a relief to everyone is that we've made it clearer and simpler for anyone and everyone to administer. The second piece of work that we've really put a lot of effort in, and Owen also mentioned previously, is really on the VVB engagement and performance management. So with the change in responsibility in terms of the certification decision, we understand that we just really need to be there to support our VVB community more. And so we have more proactive engagement, there's more support, there's more training for VVBs. And we've also implemented a more comprehensive performance and management and evaluation procedures, essentially. So just to make sure that audits are being done to the quality that we know and expect from our VVB community. Another update that I think is worth mentioning here, because it impacts project developers, is the review response timelines. And so we have timelines in place for the reviews that will be undertaken by the gold standard process. We've now introduced new response timelines for project developers and for VVBs. And so this is when you're responding to a request for clarification or a CAR. And so now you'll have a specific time period where we would expect the feedback or the a response to some of those observations that have been put forward. The reason we've put this in place is to set some clear expectations, but it's really to kind of help ensure we have more predictable certification process and more predictable timelines going through the certification process. And so we hope that this will just help alleviate all reviews across all projects over time. I've got one more slide, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. And so we talked about the assurance platform, we've talked about the amendments that we've made, we've talked about the updates that have been put forward. And so if you haven't already accessed it, then how do you actually gain access to insurance platform? So the web address is there on the slide. Again, we'll share this after this form. If you haven't already applied for access to the assurance platform, there is an online form to register for access. So the team are processing any new submissions within 2 days at the moment. On approval, you will receive an email, and that will just have further instructions on how to reset your password and access the system. For users that are not already registered with other gold standard applications, we will require some additional information from you, and the team will reach out with regards to that. in case there's any problems with your account, your login, with anything in regard to this whole process, then we have a team ready to help support you at our help desk. So feel free to reach out to us on help@goldstandard.org. Okay, on that, I'm going to potentially try and stop sharing my screen, and then we can open it up to questions.
Thanks, Claire. Yes, I'm on duty to field some of the questions. So I guess a fairly straightforward one first, Claire. What are we sharing from this deck? What resources are available, like the FAQs and all of that? Are we providing recordings here? Just if you could say a few words about that.
Of course. So we have worked quite hard to pull together enough resources to help support anyone going through this process. And so there are FAQs available. We have a demo video that I showed a part of today available. There's manuals on how to use the assurance platform available. We have the rule update that I talked about is a really useful document, and it outlines really clearly what changes have happened within our system. And all of this is going to be pulled together and shared with you after this. So anyone that's registered for this webinar, we will send through this information. You can also find it online. So it's on our homepage, and the FAQs are in our resource section.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. And just a reminder to everybody, please do put questions in the Q&A because we can capture all of those and share those with everybody as well. And it helps us keep tabs of what questions people are struggling with. So Naveen, you've asked the access to the platform isn't provided during the transition. It actually is, as Claire's last slide. So you should be able to access the platform and sign in. If you're having any trouble with that, then please do reach out to the help desk. Claire, I wonder if you could say a few words about the projects or reviews that have been sort of started under the Sustain Cert platform. So, for example, if you're partway through a preliminary review, if you've paid a fee or you're about to pay a fee, maybe you could just sort of talk about that.
Yep, of course. So from the 5th of December, essentially, if you have already paid for your review, then you can continue in the existing process for that whole review. And that's really just to make sure that we don't disrupt projects whilst they're going through their review process. And so that can continue as it is. For any new review that hasn't yet been paid for, then that will move across to our new assurance model. And so the first step will be getting access to the assurance platform. Once you have access to the assurance platform, then you can submit for your request for whichever type of review you are looking for within there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. And again, any questions, please do go to the help desk on that. Vikas is also helpfully answering some of these questions in the Q&A directly, but I'll read out some of those just so others are aware. So the question from Uta, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What's the interface with the SDG tool? Do projects automatically appear there? And yes, they do. So once you've reached listed status, it will automatically appear in both the tool and the registry. So no extra effort required there. There's a very interesting broad question from Franco. What does the new assurance consist of? And does it, for instance, guard against greenwashing? That's quite a broad one. So I'll try and tackle that in less than a minute. So the way we think about greenwashing at GS and the way I would personally define it is that it connotes a difference between what a company said and what it actually did. And that can be caused by a number of things. Maybe you achieved a thing with a project you supported, but you way overclaim it. Like you really sort of, say, oh, that makes me, super carbon positive or something, right? And it's not really true. It can't substantiate that from the facts. But it can also be inadvertent. It could be that the company makes a very reasonable claim and something in the project has gone wrong, or something in the carbon market has inadvertently undermined their reputation, right? It might not be anything intentional at all. And we've probably seen more of that in the last 5 years than overclaiming, I would say. So assurance clearly has a role in that. It can't resolve it itself. Assurance is really there to check that at the project level, what was said is what was done. But clearly a key component of that is also with the project developers. So project developers submitting good, sound information so that the auditors can review it properly is always the way that the two can work in tandem. And I would say clearly assurance is a critical component of market guards against greenwashing. But what we've seen in the last 5 years is when it hits the media, when it hits critique, it's not the VVBs that are questioned, it's always the projects, and in some cases, the issuer of the credits. So assurance can do a good part of that job, but we all have a big duty there. The gold standard, the project developers, the participants, the VVBs, all of us, we all have to step up if we want to guard against greenwashing. James, thanks, James, asked who conducts the preliminary review, and Vikas has confirmed that is with GS. Does that mean, maybe this is for you, Claire, does that mean the project developer will no longer submit any documents to the VVB, but rather directly through the platform, or more simply put, who submits documents to the platform?
So for the preliminary review, then the documents would be submitted by the project developer. And so when you go in and you request a preliminary review, then you would go in and you would update your information, and it will fields that need to be updated, and then it will also tell you which documents need to be uploaded for a successful preliminary review. And then that, once you submit that review, it will go through into the team, who will then check those documents and check that the project, it checks more about the eligibility of the project and whether it can conform to gold standard and global goals.
Great, thank you. And another question, Mustafa, thank you very much. How do project developers mark documents as confidential, should they need to?
Yeah, so there is functionality within the system where you can mark whether it's public or private, so you can manage your own documentation via that.
Great. If any doubt on that one, obviously there's some sensitive documents, so do check with the help desk again.
Yep.
Is it possible to manage a project as co-developers? So, for example, if an entity is listed as the PD, but another entity is managing the certification workflow. That's from Hannah.
Yeah, and so the platform has been designed that you can have multiple users that have access to the platform. Just one thing to note with this, the current way the platform is set up is that any user under an organization would have access to look at all the projects under that organization. And so we are looking in the development pipeline at how we can separate user management and make that more efficient and more user friendly from a user perspective. But currently you can have multiple users. Just note that they would have access to all the projects you have under your organization.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. It's a good example, I think, of the forward work plan of further improvements that we have in mind. So there's an entry level functionality there to Hannah's question that will improve over time. To Mokhtar's, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, your question about are you supposed to contact the VVB before choosing their name on the platform? So the project developer appoints the GS VVB from the approved list on the Gold Standards website. And then, of course, by the time you come to submit, you'll be able to pick their name from the drop down menu. That's kind of an inherent safeguard, really, that you can only choose a GS VVB. But naturally, you have to appoint them as a project developer. So indeed, you'd have to contact them, long before that.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
So that process still remains the same. So you would still have to contract your VVB like you do now. And the VVB, so even if you assigned a VVB, if the contract hasn't been agreed or finalized, then the VVB could actually decline that request until that contract is finalized. So there is that functionality within the system too. Yeah, so I guess exactly. My point there is just make sure that you've contracted your VVB and they know you're working in the project before you submit your request.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of commentary on minimum and maximum timelines there, Claire. I don't know if you want to comment on that more broadly. Yeah, I mean, so thanks to all of you that have asked those questions. Let's maybe just talk about the minimum maximum number of reviews, timelines.
Yeah, so the timelines that were in the table are the minimum timelines for reviews. A review is closed when all corrective actions or clarifications are closed. There's no limit in terms of the number of review rounds a project can go through, but we really hope the way that this system is set up and the way the assurance process works is that there will be a reduction in the number of, like, everything that needs to be caught should be caught in the first first round, and then so any additional questions should be just based on any request of clarifications and just closing those out. So so in terms of minimum, that was included in the table. In terms of maximum, that depends on the project and how complex it is and how well the corrective actions and clarifications are being responded to. But the hope is that this process and the way it's set up, it will help make those timelines more streamlined and efficient.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Indeed, we'll be obviously investing heavily in support to our VVBs to help them improve efficiency and quality and consistency. But there's a huge role for project developers here too. I mean, it's the classic: if you put good things in, you'll get good things out. So if your project documentation, your monitoring reports are of high quality, and you respond in a really clear way to feedback rounds, then that's the best way you can minimize the number of reviews and the time they take. Do we have to pay a fee for VVB management? I think that's really a question about the fees for VVB appointments. So project developers appoint the VVB directly in the way you would procure any other type of consultant, I suppose. It's just a qualified list. So you have to take somebody from that list. And then, yes, the project developers will pay the VVB's fees for that. The actual to be a VVB, there is a separate application process, fee schedule, and performance management process. That's not part of the project developers' duties to the VVB under the contract between the PD and the VVB. That's something that Gold Standard and the VVBs manage. This is a really specific question from Vivek. Thank you. Is it possible to upload verified documents for the new performance review for the next period before closing the previous performance review, or do you have to close the performance review before you can go to the next one? So I think that's a question of can you effectively start working on the next performance review while you're still working on one that hasn't been completed yet?
I'm gonna Vcash.
Yeah.
Good question.
Now, it is not allowed to complete, to start a new review process before concluding the previous one. It applies to other kind of reviews as well, where the previous review, like the new review has dependency on the previous one. You can't continue. You can't start the new one. For example, if you have ongoing design review, you can't start the performance review until you complete the design review with current processes. This is how it will be.
That of course doesn't stop the project developer working in their own time on the next one should they want to. It's just really on the platform. And Vikas, while you're there, similar question actually, or similar-ish question. In cases where you got multiple VPAs included in a POA and some were omitted from issuance for any reason, can a project developer request multiple performance reviews for different monitoring periods simultaneously? So I guess it's a question of, can you run, like, do the VVBs have to be in the same monitoring period? Sorry, VPAs, I keep saying VVBs, be in the same monitoring period, or can they be running their own course?
Yeah, you can combine the VPAs for performance review or inclusion review request based on their statuses. And yes, you can do more than one request for the VPAs for the same monitoring period when you are basically omitting a one, or you want to have a different group for different category of VPAs.
Great, thank you. And I guess it goes back to timelines a little bit, possibly for Claire. So we have 4 weeks and 3 weeks for first round of design reviews. Could you clarify the end dates for the second one? And then related, because it's probably an easy one to answer, is the design change process included in the platform? I guess deviation process, we may as well answer that one as well, although it's not in the question.
Yeah, okay. So your first question, let me just understand the end date.
Well, second and third round reviews, because we state in maybe it's one for Vikas, the principles and requirements have specific timelines for first round reviews, but unstated for second and third round. So maybe if we can just clarify that, Vikas.
So yeah, I mean, like the standard basically defines the kind of timeline for the first round, whereas second and third rounds are not defined. But we do kind of follow the similar timeline for the second and following round. And if the issues are minor, and let's say in second round, then timeline could be shortened. So it is more kind of open-ended and customized as per the nature of the review and the complexity of the issues that are open.
And I would add to that the fact that we've put in timelines now for project developers and VVBs to provide response. That just helps support that whole process. So if it's just responding to requests for clarifications or clarification requests, then that can come in and the reviewer will know when they're likely to expect that information back and be ready to kind of deal with that at that time. So
yeah,
that process
thanks.
there. Then you had a question about deviations and design changes. So design changes, yes, so that is included within the assurance platform. And so you can request design changes through the platform and it will take you, that request submission will take you to the correct workflow for that. Deviations is a bit more interesting because actually we don't consider deviations as being part of the certification process. By nature, a deviation is because a project activity has deviated from our rules and reason or context. And so the way that process works at the moment is continues like it does now. So if you have a deviation, then you would fill in your deviation template, you would submit that to deviations@goldstandard.org. That the decision and the review of that deviation will be done offline. Once a decision has been made, that deviation document with the deviation decision in it will be uploaded into the assurance platform.
Right,
And
thank you.
just to quickly add this, as Claire mentioned, the deviation process is not a certification process. It basically involves other stakeholders as well in decision making. In the first kind of like release of the assurance platform, deviations are not included as a workflow because it is a different workflow. But as next plan, we are going to include the deviation as well in the assurance platform. It will be managed separately, but you can, as a user, you can use the same platform to all kind of requests that you are having and to kind of needs that you have with respect to gold standard certification. So that is our kind of like plan for the next release.
Perfect. I think, Claire, for you, a couple of platform-related ones. So one is, can they use existing Sustain Cert ID or do they need to create a new account? And unrelated, but let's group a couple of questions. Is the provision improved for uploading large documents? I know that we had historically, project developers struggling with larger files to upload those. So yeah.
Larger files in terms of size of the files rather than batch multiple files. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess both, but yeah, I think this is about large documents, large individual documents. Yeah.
Yeah. So the process. So the process is. So the IDs. So the IDs will automatically be generated. So for any new project, it will go through the assurance platform, and that ID will be automatically generated. Anything that's existing has been pulled across into the current platform. So that's that part. And to be honest, I don't know what the maximum load capacity for a file is in the assurance platform. So I don't know if there would be a limitation to the file size. So I don't know if that's something that Vcash could answer. I would say upload anything you've got, and if it gets stuck, then let us know at the help desk.
Yeah, exactly. I know we've made, we've thought very carefully about that, but there are some enormous files that get submitted. I mean, so yeah, we are also wary of that.
Everything that was currently in the Sustain Cert app has been moved across. So anything that has that file limit is already in our system. So I think it's fairly high, but I don't know what the specific load capacity.
Yeah, I think just to quickly add, there could be some issues with the project with large shape files, especially in AR project land use category. As Claire mentioned, if you face any problem uploading any of the document, just let us know. We can basically make it happen from our side. As of now, we haven't included any limitation on size, but considering the system and kind of number of users, you may face some problem when you are uploading a large file.
Yeah,
Please
so
do
really
reach out to us.
keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Hannah and Mokhtar, I think your questions have been answered in terms of timelines and access, but just quickly in terms of timelines, I just wanted to add that, the 3 or 4 week period stated in the standard really is sort of the guardrail timeline. There's clearly a lot of things that can impact that, including, for example, a large volume of reviews requested at once, resource availability, the consistency and quality of VVBs. Those are the things on the gold standard side we are, improving with this platform. That's not to say that it's perfect every time as we launch, but they're really on our mind. And then on the project developer side, as I said earlier, the quality and consistency of documentation provided can really help with that as well. So again, if we put good information in, we have a good system to process it, you'll get good results back, I think is the way to think about that. And Mokhtar, Claire already answered, I think, on yes, you can have access for other users at a kind of entry level, and we plan to improve that as we go into the 2025 period and beyond. This is an interesting one. Do we have to go through preliminary review if we've... Oh, sorry, my screen's frozen. That's unhelpful timing. Do we have to go through preliminary review if we fail to submit a response to the completeness check in any part of the project stage? It's probably one for you, Vikas, I think. Yeah.
No, you need to go to the start of that request, not the preliminary review. If you are basically going through a design review, if you fail to meet the timeline, then the design review will start from the scratch rather than you go back to preliminary review.
Perfect. Spandan, yes, indeed. Claire's already answered the question that existing projects automatically carried over into the new platform. And the question around, are there any updates, about updates to project documents during the course of the VVB audit? Is there any provision to update documents? Yes, the workflow and the document management system accounts for that. And obviously, keeping the version control aligned with the review version control is really important as well, so that there's a full and complete record. So Claire and Vikas, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I think that'll be a fairly familiar interface for project developers that have been through it before. Nothing to add. Good. Okay. Minimum number of round of reviews we've already answered. There's a question: how can I register to participate in a carbon trading program, and how can I obtain its certification? So, there's a lot to unpack there, but Claire, we have entry-level guidance as well, I think.
Yeah, I would say the best thing to do with that question is if you send that to help@goldstandard.org, the team will then provide you with the information you need to answer that.
Yeah, I think if you're just starting to engage with carbon markets, the assurance platform is probably not the interface you need, right? You need a more entry-level information, and the help desk can help you with that.
Yeah.
So from Paula, one for you, Vikas, I think. When can we expect to see updates on project documentation templates? I think some of those have already been updated, but is there any plans to update further, improve those templates?
Yeah. Some of the key templates have already been updated, like preliminary review, and few others template will be updated in Q1 next year, as a few of the critical standard development standard requirements are under public consultation. So after the approval, all the detailed templates, all the templates will be updated.
Perfect. Thank you. Mokhtar, to your question, I think we've already answered that one as well, in terms of if you've already passed through preliminary review and design review, then at any stage, your project will already have been transferred into the new assurance platform, and you can pick it up from there, basically. I think that's that. And Paolo, I think we've answered your question on more than one user for the assurance platform as well, but any problem with that, please do reach out to the help desk. So is it possible to redesign a small scale VPA which has different investors in one VPA, which is verified, and make it into micro scale VPAs like 4 or 5? Because I think that's probably not a assurance platform question so much as a design change question. But if you've got any quick thoughts on it, please feel free. Otherwise, we can direct that one to the help desk and we can pick it up from there.
I think it will be good to send it via help desk to understand the details before we answer the question.
Perfect. Okay, we'll write a comment to that one to prompt the user. Thank you very much. So Jack has a question around project paid for preliminary review with sustained cert before the 5th of December, and therefore can expect to continue. But can they still update the project information in the assurance platform on our side, Claire?
So they would need to complete the preliminary review with sustained cert, and the information that comes out of that preliminary review can then move across into the assurance platform.
Great. So Ted, sorry, go
on. Sorry, just to add, because the question is also asking if the developer can update the information, project information. You may, but not at this stage. Once the project is submitted to with gold standard and you are submitting any request, you can update the information as needed. In case you need to update any urgent, any information which is critical urgently, just reach out to us via help desk, and then we can look into this, how we can support any kind of update information.
Thanks, Vikas. There's a couple of questions, Ted and Nehar, around LOOF projects, agriculture, AR projects, around the timelines and the number of reviews, timelines for review. Are those the same for AR projects, agriculture projects? Yeah, Vikas, I don't know if you want to say a few words on the differences for LOOF, perhaps.
Yes, the timelines are same, and just to be very clear, we had a lot of differences in the processes, especially for land use projects as compared to energy project. We had tried to bring everything together and have the same and consistent approach. You may look at the fee schedule, the same fee applies, preliminary review, also basically streamlined to fast track the land use and forestry project similar to energy project. In the same way, the review timeline is also same, so that we can consistently apply the same timeline for all type of project activities.
Great. And it's also, to add to that, is the previous process was a slightly different process in where you had to upload your documentations for afforestation and reforestation projects, and that's now all online within our assurance platform, so it will follow the same process as do any of our other project types.
Brilliant, thank you. There's a question from Biba. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if not. That sounds like quite a specific question about the timing of review with sustained cert on a specific POA DD. So what I would propose there is if you could write that question to the help desk and we'll pick it up there. So generally speaking, because the nuance of individual project reviews can be quite extensive, so I just want to make sure we don't mess that one up with a generic answer, Biba. So I put in the chat there, just please submit that one to the help desk and we'll review and respond to it properly. Yep. From Marcelino, Claire, my account already includes requests under my requests section, although no request has been made through the platform yet. Is that, what are we experiencing there, do we think? Is that a...
well, go on, Vikash, you look like you're going to lean in.
Yeah, that's the system design. My request is a tab. All your requests when you made will appear under this tab. So this is a kind of separate section on the web page where you could see all your requests submitted to the platform.
But if they've already got requests in that section, and though none have been made, that sounds
then,
like a
yeah,
quirk.
Let us know if they could send us the detail and a screen grab of what they're seeing to the help desk, then we can just have a little look at that.
Okay, I'll just put that one in the response. Thanks, Marcelino. Let us check into that one. That sounds like a bit of a quirk. From Martin, probably one for you, Claire. Will there be standardized file names for uploaded documents, or can PDEs freely name them as they could with sustained cert?
So they can be freely named, but I, coming from a comms background, would highly recommend taking a route of a standardized approach. But yeah, they can be freely named.
Yeah, I'd echo that, appreciating that different projects might have different file norms and investor requirements. The clearer you can make your file names and the more consistently you apply them over the life of the project, it's another one of those things that make review times quicker and easier and scrutiny backwards quicker and easier.
it makes review times quicker and easier, but it also, because these are the documents that will appear on the registry under your project. And so if you've got investors looking to buy, and so they're looking to see past documentation, if it's easy for them to pick up and look at those in a standardized and chronological way, it will support that process as well.
And Claire, do we already have a recommended filing norm, or maybe that's something we can think about otherwise, just to give like as a guideline, not as a fixed requirement? Yeah, just Tor, in terms of oversight management of the VVB review fees. So as I said earlier, project developers will directly appoint the GSVVB and agree a fee with them for those services. And GSVVBs have a separate agreement and fee schedule for being part of the gold standard approved list. And those are managed by separate teams within the gold standard, so that the provision of support and oversight for VVBs is managed by one team, and the assurance review management, as we mentioned, the ARM team, is separate. There is oversight of the agreements with VVBs. There's a very carefully calibrated assurance brief that Gold Standard follows. We're also part of the ISEAL Alliance, so you'll probably know members like FSC and Fair Trade. So everything we do is also overseen by ISEAL itself. So we're sort of accountable to ISEAL to maintain a good practice system in that regard. So without going into loads of details on this call, yes, there's very strong oversight and support for our VVB community, but that is managed separately. It's not part of the project developer agreement with us, but the project developer appoints the VVB. Yeah, Claire, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I was going to say, Owen, I wonder if it's worth just talking a bit about ISEAL and just, the code of good practice for assurance
Sure.
and how we're still adhering to that because of the way the system's set up.
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, so for those that don't know, the ISEAL Alliance was set up, I'm not entirely sure when, by WWF and a few other NGOs, and it was really to provide an umbrella organization of good governance standards for sustainability systems, and systems like fair trade would probably be the most famous one, but Rainforest Alliance, FSC, the Marine Stewardship Council, there's lots of names you would probably recognize from their list. They're typically commodity certification standards. So gold standard's quite an unusual member in that we focus on projects and programs, but the ISEAL codes of good practice cover all of the elements of a standards system. So that's how you set standards, how you assess conformity against those standards, and how the assessment of conformity itself is overseen. And basically what those codes point to is a management of conflicts of interest. So it's really important that a standard system doesn't do all of those things in-house. If you set your own standard and you assure against it and you oversee how it's been assured, you can very quickly see that there's an opportunity to game the system within a system. And so it's a carefully calibrated system, reviewed and assessed by ISEAL to maintain our membership. And the system works at gold standard. So we do set the standards ourselves, but we have an independent advisory committee called the TAC, so that we don't make decisions that could lead to more carbon crediting for our own benefit, for example. We have independent assurance. So GSVVBs assess the conformity against the standard. And then the oversight works in a sort of dual way, where the GSVVBs can only enter the system if they've got an independent third-party accreditation through ISO. And then we provide further oversight and performance management on top of that, because the ISO standards don't cover all of the aspects of gold standard. So it's a very carefully thought through, very carefully calibrated system in line with ICL good practice. It's also covered maybe closer to home for carbon market participants. It's part of the program review for things like ICVCM, Corsia, for example. So yeah, it's a lot of thought goes into that. Not too much thought to convey in a 1-minute answer, but yeah, we're very proud of our ICL membership, I would say, most of all. To Claire, what happens if a PD is not able to upload incomplete documents within 2 weeks given the completeness check? Does the process start again? How does that work? Yeah.
So it just means that like your kind of allocated slot for your review, you just have to go through the process again. So there's no the only implication at the moment is really time. If it goes beyond a year, then you'll have to resubmit everything again. But but if you go beyond 2 weeks, then you just it just might delay your review timeline slightly.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Neha's question is there a fee for deviations, and Vikas has clarified that there is not, and Claire clarified earlier that's sort of outside of the assurance process by its nature. From Thomas, is there
I
a
will, can I just
Oh, sorry,
add that there is a fee for deviation reconsideration. So if you
Yes.
wanted to reconsider a deviation decision, there is a $1,000 fee for that. And then if the reconsideration, if there's a change in the decision, then you would receive that fee back. If there's not a change in the decision, then.
Yes, good catch. Thanks, Claire. It's a bit like for the cricket fans amongst you, it's like the DRS. So if you make a good call, then you get your review back. From Thomas, are there VVB PD response timelines, a maximum timeline? Vikas has confirmed there is. Vikas, do you want to just quantify that and just explain that one?
Yep. So for VVBs and the PDs, the timeline that Claire displayed on the screen, 2 weeks and 6 weeks is the maximum time that PDs and VVBs have to respond back to a review round. So, we are basically setting this timeline to really have more predictive sort of review timeline for everyone, so that we can align the resources at our end. We can meet the timeline and expected sort of outcome from the review processes. So yes, those are maximum timeline allowed to for VVPs and PTs to respond back to any round of review.
Brilliant. And while I've got you, annual reports, do we submit annual reports on the platform? Can we submit it the previous version as the deadline for 31st of December? Just, if you want to say a few words about the annual report functionality, maybe.
Yeah, so annual report after 5th of December, if you are submitting an annual report after 5th of December for any of the project, then you will submit it at Gold Standard Assurance platform, and the templates are available. Templates were also updated. So you could use the new templates to update the information.
Right, thank you. Claire, Vikas, we've gone over the hour a little bit, but I'm happy to go through the last few questions. I know you might have to go, but so far as I can answer them, happy to stay on and do that if it's helpful.
Let's.
I have to leave for another call, but I think if there are any questions, we can respond via email as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Vikas.
Thanks, Vikas. Claire, I'll stay on just for a few minutes to before we wrap. Feel free to drop off if you need to. But there's not that many left, so I think let's try and get through them.
Okay.
So two excellent questions from Anna, which I'll attempt. One on is there virus protection on the platform, and how do we check if documents are prepared using AI? So I won't go into too much detail on the virus protection, but the short answer is yes. Gold Standard itself is working through, and I'm apologies because I'm not, despite my title, the technology guy, that we are working through the relevant ISO digital security standard. I can't for the life remember the name of it, but yes, is the short answer. We're taking that extremely seriously. It's actually a part of our board reporting that we act on that, and there'll be more to follow on that as part of GSIQ. On documents prepared by AI, so that's something we've been thinking a lot about, and there's positives and negatives to that, especially, for example, if you're a project developer whose native language isn't English per the platform. There's a lot to be said, I think, for using AI to help you produce better documents. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having your answers reviewed and re-prepared by a GPT, for example. But there's the big but. Clearly the project developer retains responsibility for providing accurate information. So if you provided that accurate information, it's been processed by AI, no problem. If AI has taken your information and twisted it, then you're still responsible for that. So responsibility for accurate information remains with the project developer. It matters less to us if you've used a GPT or something to improve the quality. In fact, it may be beneficial, but you just need to manage that carefully as project developers, because clearly a GPT can take your words and make them mean something else. And if you've done that, then you're submitting inaccurate information. AI is something we're considering across the suite of GSIQ, however. So, watch this space for more. I think there's a lot that we can use to help VVBs hone in on the key items, for example, for review. So take it very seriously. It's definitely not a blanket concern with AI in the project documentation, but it doesn't change the fundamental responsibility for providing accurate information. So careful what again, good in, good out, I suppose. Yeah. So what's the difference between the global public consultation and public comments period? This is something we've introduced. Claire, do you want to say a few words on that? I'm happy to pick up otherwise.
So the global public consultation, we've really implemented it to enable more inclusive feedback and more transparency, and so it will be open just for 2 weeks as and when a project goes in for either design review, performance review, or crediting renewal. And the project will basically be made public, and there's a page on our assurance platform that says global consultation, and so you'll be able to see any project that is open for global consultation on that page. And so it's free for anyone to submit comments and submit feedback. I will say that and the feedback that's taken from that global consultation will then form part of the output report that the reviewer sends to the project developer and the VVB. I will say that any comments should be on the specific projects. Any feedback should be related to that specific project that's open for public review. Any comments that are broader or at the market more generally, then we would consider, but we would take that within gold standard and not against the project itself. So that's just one clarification to make there. Yeah, does that answer the question?
I think so. I'll try and rattle through it. There's actually quite a lot more questions, but let's see if we can just quickly rattle through some of them. Otherwise, we'll
Yeah, I wonder whether we go until 15 minutes past, and then I think
That's
any additional questions we will follow up with the whole communication, and we can just make sure that there's answers to those questions within that.
Okay, let's quick fire it, see we can go through them. So from Harry, hi Harry, nice to hear from you. Is the ARM team a newly appointed experts? Does it have capacity? So yes, a new team, completely new to gold standards. There's 6 teammates already in that group, and recruitment plans for as many again in early 2025. It's already, I would say, bigger than the pre-existing team doing the same job within the system, but they are new colleagues. There's been extensive onboarding and support. I would say for sure has the capacity. Between the people you've had on this call, Claire, Vikas, and myself, we've been all here for 10 years plus now, all managed the system the first time around when it was previously at GS. So a lot of experience at the management level. And so we will be, wrapping ourselves around that ARM team and giving them all the love and support they need. But we feel very confident and stand right side by side with them. So really confident in that team. To Julian, estimation files for all type of projects will be public in the platform. So yes, there's guidance on what documentation to upload. Different projects do it in different ways, but evidence used to support claims made should be uploaded. So yeah, the short answer is yes, but the format of those can really vary depending on project types. Some have very complex Excel spreadsheets, some are much simpler calculations.
I would say I would just add to that, if there is private, because sometimes some of these calculation sheets have private sensitive information in them. So if there is private or sensitive information that shouldn't be shared, then you can make those private to public viewing, but the reviewer would still get access to them and be able to review them as part of the process.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, well, we've got commercially sensitive information, that kind of thing. There's provision for that. Obviously, the onus on project developers to be clear with the platform, which bits are confidential. We can't do that for you, but we can manage it if you tell us. Will there be something similar to the certification reviews expedited service? There's another question about fast tracking. So there's nothing right now, Claire, but yeah.
No, there is no provision for an expedited service currently. We hope and we feel that we've designed this whole process in a way that actually projects shouldn't need an expedited service. They should be able to go through the process as it's designed to go through. So the short answer is no, and we hope that the process has been designed that reviews will be done in a timely way.
Yeah. So from Ram, does the VVB central office, is it a VVB central office registration or is it individual? It's actually both. So it's the VVB itself is approved to the GS VVB list, but we also have individual exams, we call them, which sounds very onerous, doesn't it? But there are individual registrations for VVB staff members as well, team members, team leaders, that must be included too. So it's actually both to that question, Ram.
I think
Nehar,
we've got, I was going to say, I think we've got about 25 VVB organisations and 400 plus VVB auditors that are qualified to review gold standard projects.
Yep. Stephanie says, if you've gone through preliminary review but has CAIs still open, then those are to be resolved within the Sustain Cert platform, right, Claire, and then come over, or could they come over before CAIs
so is this
resolved?
so is a review that's been done within Sustain Cert and they've got forward
Exactly.
corrective actions? Yeah, so they can come across and then they will be reviewed in the next review within the gold standard assurance platform.
Great. And from Megan, GS design change review fee is $1,000 per project and crediting period is 2,000 per project. Does project mean per VPA or per POA as a whole?
The project would mean per VPA, on that.
Yeah. Just confirming. So AJ, timeline table shown by you, combined design and performance review is 3 weeks. Is this correct? Just confirming, because it was 6 weeks in the previous iteration.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Yep, I
We can
agree.
double check.
We'll double check it, but yeah, that's what it says. So to Adole, again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, company provides power solutions in Nigeria. I would suggest you take that one and submit it to the gold standard help desk. I think the assurance platform is not the right first touch point for you. I think you need more entry level information, which the help desk can really support you.
That's a good point, actually. I think entry level. So if you're just starting out on your project development journey, then the first point of call would be through the help desk. And so we have a team there that can help support new projects and provide the information on how to certify your project and what that means. And so, yeah, that would be your first point of call. And then if you decide to certify your project to gold standard, then you'd get access to all our lovely applications.
Exactly. I think we've crossed the Rubicon. It's 16 minutes past the hour. So I think just because this question's still rolling in, Claire, I mean, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate the interest, and the questions are so useful for us to hear. But I'm just conscious of everybody's time and our ability to respond. Claire, I think we can say we will take those questions away and provide written answers as part of the sharing of the slides and the etc. When that comes through. But if anybody has urgent short-term questions, please connect with the help desk. We can deal with that more quickly there directly. I think let's park the questions there then in that case. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Like I say, we really appreciate the input and the support we've had today, and we're super excited to share this platform with all of you. And yeah, let me hand back to Claire to say a few words of wrap up.
No, well, you've said it. I mean, it's thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I think just something to take away is that we really are here to help support you through this process. So use the help desk, use us, and yeah, we're looking forward to a world where there is even more efficiency within the gold standard processes.
Yeah, and happy end of year, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye bye.